Attention, bobsled riders! You will soon be embarking on a thrilling podcast down the icy slopes of the Matterhorn. So please remain seated, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the bobsled at all times. Auf Wiedersehen! Hello there!
That was good.
Was that good?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Matterhorn Yodelers. I am Peter with my co-host
Jackie
and
G5th.
And if you couldn't tell by my hello there, we're going to be talking about Obi Wan Kenobi.
You want to hear a fun fact?
Yeah, let's hear a fun fact.
I want to get it out of the way. His brother is in the Royal Air Force, and his call sign is Obi-2.
Obi-2. There we go. That's fun.
Right?
That's way fun.
That's cool. So
sorry, I threw out the whole flow like.
All right, well, let's start over. Hello there. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Obi Wan Kenobi because his show is when this one comes out, it will be about to premiere. And I think we thought it was a good idea to go a little bit on the history of who Obi Wan Kenobi was.
You for this.
Yeah, we're gonna get you ready, and
so
maybe
you don't have to watch 2 hours of YouTube videos of like his past.
Oh my gosh, you couldn't tell me how many YouTube videos I had to watch where they're like part 1, and like
I think we watched the same one.
we probably did, and like oh my gosh, it was like intense.
They go over a book. And the second part,
entirely,
just like, oh, and they're like, episode 1. It's like, I watched episode 1. I know what happened.
Can we just skip the movies? We've seen the movie. Let's get into the other content.
And that's basically what we're doing. Is we're skipping the movies, and we're gonna.
We'll touch in on this on the movies because they are important, because that's obviously where most of his character is driven from. But there is side information from other such media, from other books, comics, TV series, and so on. And so I think it's good to find out a little bit more about this and help you get ready for what we might expect when it comes to this Obi Wan Kenobi series, which we'll probably do another episode on when that series finishes up. So before we get into the history itself, there's something that like I want to point out now, just my commentary on doing this research was that I learned a lot that like when learning about Obi Wan Kenobi's backstory, it was really learning the backstory of 3 different individuals: Qui-Gon, Anakin, and Luke.
Yep.
Like Obi Wan's like character just revolves around these 3 characters' plot lines, and he just kind of has you get more of it with the Qui-Gon side of things because you see his development as a Padawan and their struggle as
it's Liam
Master
Neeson. Like,
Apprentice.
I mean, you're not gonna overshadow.
right. But
like Ewan McGregor, I'm not saying. I mean, so many great memes have come out of it.
Oh, totally.
Hello there.
Hello there. Yes. So let's get into it. Let's talk about Ben Kenobi at the beginning. What do you have first, Japheth?
So he was born on a planet called Stujon, which was established really early on by George Lucas. He was like, he's from this location. And it's like, named after a comedian from that time period. So it's kind of funny that, like,
this random thing.
This universe he creates is like, Obi-Wan? Stujon. Like, it's like, whoa, all right.
Where did that come from?
That happened.
When are you going to bring that up in the movie? Oh, I'm not.
Never.
I'm not. It's not going to be relevant at all, but that's where he's from.
But he's going to have the high ground.
What?
Kind of crazy. All right. So he was detected by the Jedi Council and picked up at 3. So you get some of this in the Clone War cartoon about, like, how do the Jedis join? It's not like an enlistment, like, I want to be a Jedi. Like,
and you get little infants like,
So they have a method of sensing Force-sensitive children in the universe, and then they kidnap them in the night. And they're like, you're mine. No, obviously there's a... You know, like, we're the Republic and we need you. This is for the greater good.
It was my understanding. It's my understanding that for all Republic, anyone in the Republic, you submit your blood to the Republic, and that's one of the main reasons why, so that they can detect for future Jedi to be pulled into
the Metachlorian count.
Yes.
It's all about that's all about episode 1.
Yep, the thing that most Star Wars fans hate. It's all about that. It's all about them midichlorians.
You know, they're walking in the room like, dude, this count's way higher than Yoda's. No, man. No, I'm not the Yoda.
Mine's 5,000.
No, man. He's the chosen one. No. I'm the chosen one. The prophecy foretold it.
Mine's only 300.
Oh, no. You could fight, like, the tarantula, dude. You'll be a colonel. But everyone's a general. Yeah, sorry, you're clowns.
You'll be the librarian. You know,
Jacosta's like, I resent that. You're like, who's Jacosta? And I'm like, this Star Wars nerd knows.
That's right. She's actually really cool.
She has a cool story. All right,
there's a lot of Star Wars all at once.
Pew, 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 pew.
Trigger warning for those people that get overwhelmed by too much Star Wars information. It's coming in hot.
It is. So he's picked up at a later age. Normally they're picked up earlier because if you pick them up too late, they grow attachments and
he's too old.
Yes, you get that Yoda, and the Jedis that tend to get picked up later on they tend to be unorthodox. They have attachments and emotions, and it doesn't. They're not always the model Jedi,
right?
Yeah.
So that's the best way of saying it. But he's trained, he does really well by Sindraling. He's a lightsaber master. He does really well. But he's not picked up till later. He's 13 years old. Like, he almost got, cut. It's to do the other,
From my understanding, he was a little rebellious.
Yes.
At times.
And they equate that to him being picked up so late.
Right.
And so, he almost didn't get picked up, and he helps Qui-Gon on a mission, and he's like, all right, the council says you should have Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon. And so he picks him up. Let's see what we got. Qui-Gon was a Padawan of Count Dooku, who is the villain throughout the Clone Wars. He's a Jedi that finds out what his lineage is. You learn this in the Count Dooku book. It's a really good, if you're really into knowing more about the Clone Wars and the backstory, the Count Dooku book is really good to listen to.
Count Dooku is a very interesting character and actually very important to the relationship between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
I agree. He sets the ball rolling for this whole storyline with the Chosen One.
Yes.
And Anakin and bringing balance to the Force. And so and to learn their stories, to really understand the prophecy and really get the Star Wars ball rolling.
Right. So for a little backstory, Qui-Gon, he wasn't your typical Jedi. He disagreed a lot with the Council because he was more of about
it's about the Force.
The Force. And
the Force will dictate what's going on.
Correct. And prophecies and things like that. And he was always reading those ancient prophecies and understood them. And that's why, if you watch, Episode 1, he says, oh, Anakin, he's the chosen one. He's like, oh, you're referring to the prophecy.
Yeah, Mace Windu.
That thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
the one where, Mace Windu thought, maybe he was the chosen one to bring balance because he was kind of, on the edge.
Right.
Very powerful. Count Dooku thought he was the chosen one. So everyone thinks they're the one. But
I am the chosen one.
I love how, going to that chosen one, the one that brings balance to the Force, didn't ever think to them they have 2 and we have 300.
Yeah.
We want to balance this. Well, do you bring up or do you bring down?
Right.
And guess what did he do? He brought them down, and it was just no one ever thought
and
I know there's a deeper meaning there will not be any Sith or Jedi, and it will be neutral, the Force is there.
Right.
You won't have a battle.
Yeah. And the thing with the fall of the Jedi, it's very interesting to see that because the Jedi had been growing away from what made them Jedi to begin with, and they had become the police force / army generals
for the
Republic, and so they kind of got away from what made a Jedi a Jedi.
Going with the Force and like, where is it dictating?
Right.
But that's kind of hard too, because you're like, how does the like subconscious mind doesn't interpret? Like, you can misinterpret things. I guess that's coming from like not having the Jedi mentality of like having that clarity and the feeling of the Force. So there's a quote from, since we're talking about prophecies, there's a book written by Claudia Gray. She's a great writer for Star Wars books. She wrote Bloodline, which goes into like how Princess Leia was no longer in the Senate. How she got drummed out of the Senate
of the New Republic
because someone found out that Darth Vader is her dad, and they're all like, "Oh, whoa, that was like it just like killed her career politically." And now she becomes general, starts seeing something. But Claudia Gray writes that, and she writes a good like teen novel called Lost Star, and it's about like two kids that grow up on a planet and they join the Empire. And then after the Death Star blows up Alderaan, one's like, no, we're the baddies. I can't do this. And kind of talks about their journey and like how they loved each other. And so it's a cute Star Wars story, but it really is, it's good. I remember reading it like in a weekend, and it's like 500 pages. I thought it was just really good. And every time I read her books, I'm like, oh, that's a Claudia Gray book. It's really good. So in this book, Master and Apprentice, it goes into the relationship of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and you really get into the mindset of like Qui-Gon, like you mentioned. It goes into like what's driving Qui-Gon, because he's the one that's driving Obi-Wan's experience.
Correct.
And so it's very good, but there's a lot of turmoil. Like Obi-Wan wants the flash and the training and all that cool stuff.
He wants to upgrade his fighting techniques.
He doesn't want to be taught basic stuff, which he goes into going like, well, I teach you the basics because that's what's going to save you, because that's what you're always going to fall on. It's not about the flashy moves and stuff like that. The triple lightsaber, like whatever. So in this, it goes about the prophecies. He goes, I do believe studying the prophecy is a way of defining the future. The prophecy is about the present. Ancient Jedis were attempting to see the future while rooted in their own time, as we all are. They can only predict the future through the prism of their own experience. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like,
it's a very profound way of thinking about...
Instead of just like, this is what like Notre Dame is saying, like, we have social security numbers, the mark of the beast. It's not like that where it's just like, and then he goes into like, by studying their warnings, we learn more about their ways than any history Hollow can teach us. Hollows are like their databases. And asking ourselves how we interpret those prophecies reveals our own fears and limitations. And I was like, wow, it's a really profound way of like why Qui-Gon and why Count Dooku were into studying these things. Because like Obi-Wan's like, great, I know ancient Alderaanian. That gets me really far.
Right.
And like his friends like, oh, I'm studying like astrophysics, and this guy is like plant biology and talking to plants and healing, and he's like, I'm in the dusty library with Jocasta going, would you like a butterscotch? No, for the last time.
Oh, that's so true.
So there was that resentment, and so on this book it goes into Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. Not Qui-Gon felt guilty he wasn't giving him the experience, because Qui-Gon's like, I'm a book nerd, this is what I'm really into. Right. And like Obi-Wan's like, I just want to do something exciting. And it's hard for them. And this book goes into that relationship. So you really want to know more about the Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, because Qui-Gon, as you know in episode 1, was offered the position on the council. It's a brief statement in episode 1 where it's all like, yeah, you turned them down. Right. It's a slap in the face,
Right.
And so they talk about the history of like why he selected, who wanted him on there. Yoda didn't want Qui-Gon on there because he's kind of rebellious. He brings a different perspective. Yeah. And as like you said, it's all about the Force, not about the Jedi dilemmas and the politics that come from that. And so they patch their relationship, and Qui-Gon eventually goes, "Hey, I need to be with Obi-Wan, and I can't do the politics because of the dilemmas, with slavery and the galaxy, and what's good for the galaxy, the utilitarian dilemmas of, suffer the few for the many, that was really hard for him. Going like, I don't buy this, and so that was really hard for him. Let's see." They succeed in their mission and they go off, and he still trains with them for, he was 17 during that, and he doesn't go on to reach knighthood till he's 25.
Right.
Or, be accepted. And that's where Obi-Wan is 25 by the time he hits episode 1.
Right.
So there's that period. He goes on other missions. There is a love story that you mentioned. And it is mentioned in the Clone Wars. It's a hint where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, they go to Mandalore, and Obi-Wan falls in love with Satine, the Duchess.
Duchess Satine.
Yes, and they fell in love, and he was probably at that age where if he wanted to,
they were kind of being her bodyguard.
Yeah,
because they're doing a transition of power, because the Mandalorians were a very warlike culture, and they're transitioning to a peace neutral pacifist
society. Yes.
And she was a part of that pacifist movement, and so it was Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's job to protect her as she's basically prepared for the throne.
Yes. Obi-Wan, being what he is, he was kind of like an idealist. Like, he followed the rules. He's that goody good. You follow the rules. We all have those people who are like, follow the rules, you'll be good. And that's where some of that clashing happened with Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's like, he was willing to work with thieves and gamble the Queen's ship so that they could get the parts that they need. Off of some slave boy, pod racer. It just shows you Qui-Gon's reckless, but he's all like, it's for the better. Like, he's a realist. He understands, and he takes people. He doesn't judge people for what they've done once or twice as robbers or thieves, but he takes them as people as a whole and in their whole experience, because you don't think these Jedi like Padawan are on Coruscant. They think that's how everybody is, a big city, and that's not true. There's different planets and cultures, and they're not all humans, and they all experience different things. So I think Qui-Gon was good in helping Obi-Wan learn and have more patience towards his people. Where are we at now? Falling in love. It's kind of like with it was kind of like a rule.
This would be a quintessential part to Obi-Wan's character. Is this moment right here?
Yeah.
Falling in love.
Falling in love because, it's there in stories you hear Qui-Gon fell in love. And that Count Dooku's other apprentice, Alvarez,
seems like
he fell in love. Or he didn't fall in love. He goes, he was caught with a maid by Qui-Gon, and he goes like, I'm not attached. I'm just sleeping with her. Like, there's no attachment there. And it's like one of those logic, like, I don't know, like...
It seems like the whole rule of, like, Jedis are not supposed to, like, date or marry was broken many
were Anakin was not the first. And that's kind of what I want to bring up. Like, this is a dilemma, I think, for
it was definitely something that's, like, extremely frowned upon and was allowed in certain situations. I think Ki-Adi-Mundi, the guy with the tall head, his race doesn't produce a lot of males, and so he was allowed to have children.
And there was always a rumor with Yoda and Yodita.
Yaddle.
Yaddle.
Yes.
And that
Grogu
is the love child of the
Yoda and Yaddle.
That was the early Mandalorian kind of discussion.
Right.
50 years ago, it was a dark.
There's a reason why Yaddle had to disappear after episode 1.
Yeah.
That's when Yoda went dark side for a moment. No one can know about this.
Yaddle, go away. You're banished.
You're going on assignment. So in the end, I think it's the Jedi rules and code was kind of a guideline and not the law. You weren't going to get kicked out but they were kind of like,
well,
don't
it's just
do it.
like,
yeah,
it was heavily frowned upon.
if you were kicked out of the Jedi, then you would either become against the Jedi or just
you're
like
just a rogue. You're a Ronin at that point, a masterless.
And so it's just like, what's worth it, kicking them out or not?
And there's always like the hope of bringing it back, because the Jedi folklore, you know, there were people that went to the dark side that come back.
Right.
I mean, you got Revan, classic, you know, and the Old Republic. So I think there's that level of forgiveness and like, hey, I think you were mistaken.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the Jedi have fallen away from who they were. Because I think it was more of like a guideline in terms of like, hey, you probably shouldn't be having relationships with people. It's not very good. And then as time went on, it became like an unofficial rule that like it's forbidden sort of thing.
Some of the old books that were in Legends, they talk about like in Revan's time, he had a wife. And so it was kind of like, and other Jedis would have kids and they would become Jedis like tens of thousands of years before. But I think they created this rule going, okay, obviously you guys are together and we're getting more trouble than good with this. Right. So let's kind of create this rule. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up aspect of Obi-Wan, and it was interesting, like some personality thing. Obi-Wan actually liked flying when he was an apprentice.
Yes.
He looked forward to it.
Drastically changes.
Yeah, drastically changes. It brings up in the later part, and that he liked writing. Oh. And so he learns to like connect with an animal, trying to get at their level, and they're like do a soul-to-soul connection to really hone in. You see it in episode 2 when he like calms down the one beast and the fighting thing, and he goes on to ride him and stuff like that.
And then he rides that really annoying animal in episode 3.
I think in the book that I mentioned, that's the same animal.
Oh my god!
That's always like, what's my riding choice? This one, because I'm stealthily coming in.
That's so annoying.
Grievous won't hear me. Kenobi! He's like, how did you know? And he's like, you're a stupid animal! I love when they shoot me. He's like, alright, that's all I got, you know. And then the next story is basically the Anakin it jumps into the story with the prophecy.
So before we get into that, there was something that I heard that in the research that I thought was a very important point. It was, you know, throughout this whole conflict between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, they have this internal conflict with each other. Like, Obi-Wan's, like, basically saying, like, I'm going to get a new master. Like, you are not my fit.
Yeah.
They butt heads. And eventually, like Qui-Gon has, like, a moment with him, and he goes, there's a reason why you're with me. It's because you were rebellious before me, and they knew you were going to be rebellious with your new master, so they gave you a master who was pretty rebellious towards the council to make you the Jedi that they want you to be. And he's all like, oh, I never thought about that before.
Yeah, it's a good point in establishing, like, hey, you're so strict because of me. You know.
Yeah, and like in the comics, you could really tell that Obi-Wan was very for the Jedi and the Republic.
Literal.
Like, you know, he did not like to go off the beaten path, and he was very for it, and it makes sense with like his training and his, master.
And so we get into the movies. We get into episode 1. Where you do kind of see a little bit of that conflict between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon a little bit.
With him sometimes.
There's a little snippy, like especially knowing the backstory more. You see it more, even though they probably didn't know that when they were filming it. But like you see that there is some sort of like conflict with each other, but also like
they know how to jib each other and kind
right.
of like
They know how to work together, sort of thing. And they're very, and you always saw that they were always sent on like diplomatic missions. They were always sent to negotiate and things like that. That was always seems to be Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's MO. Like that was always the assignment for them. All right, go negotiate.
And they say Obi-Wan's really good at getting into the details of things. He's good at like research. You know, you spend all that time with Jocasta. You know, you're gonna learn how to get into the finer details of diplomacy.
Right. And so then we get into episode 1. The whole story takes place. You see, it's kind of fun. I always love the scene when they're at the Jedi Council and, like, you know, Qui-Gon's all like, well, I'm going to train Anakin. He's like, you can't train Anakin. You already got a Padawan. Oh, he's ready for the challenges. I'm ready. I'm ready. I can do it. I can totally be
It's
a
like,
Jedi
come on.
now.
He said the later read. It's like he was totally ready for it.
I'm totally ready. I can be a Jedi. I don't need Qui-Gon.
And I mean, he does prove himself. He kills Darth Maul. You know, he avenges and
right.
Like, he's ready.
And that goes back to the point that we talked about a little bit about how Qui-Gon trained him lightsaber style. That, like, he didn't teach him the extra cool tricks. He made sure he mastered the basics so that, like, in a lightsaber fight, nobody could top him when it came to a lightsaber match. Other sort of scenarios might be different. Our Father Yoda has a commentary on that. We might talk about that a little bit when we get to the Clone Wars series. But when it comes to, like, actual, like, lightsaber skill, I think Obi Wan was considered top tier. Even in the Epic Duels board game, he had the most health out of all the heroes.
He could handle himself.
He was, he can do anything, and you saw that happen a lot in the Clone Wars series.
He took on Grievous and
bounty
Maul
hunters
and
You see it also in the comics too, that he takes on a lot of people, and it's funny because one of the comics I read, it was like, he's like he's on a mission or whatnot, and he runs into some thieves, and he's all like, forget the treasure, I want the laser sword. And he was all like, nice try, and he was all like, you know, fighting, like, I don't know, it was like 10 or 15 like thieves with the lightsaber.
It's amazing what they do.
Oh, absolutely. So then we get into his character. So, like, episode 1 happened, Qui-Gon gets killed by Darth Maul, and then Obi-Wan comes in and surprises Darth Maul. And
which I'm still like, even that scene where he, like, Darth Maul's right there and, like, whoop, I'm levitating and I'm slicing you. Like, it's like, what are you doing? You're like, it's
well, I think
amazing.
there was that sense of cockiness on Maul's part.
Of course.
That caught him off guard, how he was able to fly out over him and just surprise him and just slice him.
I think Anakin heard that story too many times. Where he's like,
probably.
I don't care about your high stuff.
Totally.
You took Maul out, I'll take you out.
Totally. And so, you know, obviously Qui-Gon said, like, you need to train Anakin because he is the chosen one. And that kind of sets the path of Obi-Wan and Anakin's storyline, which is more about Anakin than it is about Obi-Wan.
But why was the council agree to have this guy with no experience training anyone, the perceived, like, chosen one, and also he's too old, really. Like, those guys are so difficult. You have Count Dooku, who was, like, very straight-laced, that trained, you know, Alvarez, you know, and he was still a rebel, like, Jedi. What makes you think that this new green guy that, I don't know, it makes me like wonder.
In some of the stories, Obi-Wan is his, like, master, but a lot of other Jedis are training Anakin. Like Palpatine trained Anakin, because Obi-Wan had to go on missions and stuff without Anakin.
Yeah, I mean, we see that in the Clone Wars, and that is something that the listener probably needs to know, is that if you didn't watch the Clone War animation, you know, they'll go on different missions. They'll trade off Padawan with other masters to do missions, you know, depending on if the training, you know, the Padawan's master goes off on a separate mission, because there's, like, the one mission where, like, Obi-Wan changes his face and plastic surgery, and, like, you know, it's not like Anakin's like, I want to do it too.
Right. But, like, kind of going back to talking about that transition period.
Yeah.
You know, you were talking about, like, why would they agree to do it? I think at that time, it was one of those things, they probably they weren't sure if Qui-Gon was right.
I know, yeah.
They're not sure, but they're like, but we can't throw this kid out because he could be, you know? And so, and they probably couldn't figure out who would be the best person to train Anakin. And so they said, well, Qui-Gon was the one who had the most faith in him, and Obi-Wan was the closest thing we have to Qui-Gon at this moment. And Obi-Wan was good, you know, like he was smart. He knew how to handle himself. Like, he was a well-trained fighter. He knew how to negotiate. Like, he mastered he knows how to use the Force. So, like, he would be a good teacher. And so I think it was one of those things like, okay, well, we'll see how you do sort of thing. And obviously, Anakin succeeded in doing a lot of things. He excelled in all of his courses. I even watched this, they showed this one scene with, like, how, like, these kids... other Padawans at the Jedi were like, mocking him. He called him a slave, and he like totally like uses the Force. He totally
triggered on that one.
He turns their lightsabers on and like using the Force up against them, and he's all like, and they like jump down to like, oh, calm down. Like, there's a little hint there's some anger. But you do see there's a moment where you get some rebelliousness from Anakin to Obi-Wan because Anakin feels that like Obi-Wan doesn't really want to be his master. The only reason why he is his master is because Qui-Gon said
he didn't really have a choice. It's more of like, you know, it's my duty.
Right. So yeah, so like there was that internal conflict. Obviously, in the end, they resolve it, and their relationship would have been far different than if it was Qui-Gon and Anakin. Qui-Gon and Anakin would have been far more of a father-son relationship, whereas...
As opposed to brothers.
Obi-Wan is definitely more of like a brother situation.
So there was a certain story that I read where it talked about the struggle with Anakin and Obi-Wan, and it's a constant struggle. And Obi-Wan goes to Anakin because, like, apologizing for like whatever action he did. It was all like, I feel like I'm a failure because you want Qui-Gon, but you got me. And,
right.
And that you
because Qui-Gon saved him. He freed him. You didn't know who Obi-Wan was.
Yeah. And it's just interesting because, like, the struggle between Obi-Wan and Anakin is...
it's always
there.
funny.
Obi-Wan's method of training and teaching was, I'm going to treat you like an equal.
Yeah.
That was kind of his direction. It was, me and you, we were partners. Like, we're working together. Like, there really wasn't much of, like, I'm over you.
No. I'm learning this as much as you are learning how to do this.
And one of the stories I read, it was like, Anakin just became a Jedi Knight, but he kept on calling Obi-Wan master, and he's like, I am not your master. Like, multiple times. Like, we are equal. Like...
That is something interesting because when you get into, like, when you're in the military and you're like, hey, corporal this, corporal that, and you still want to call them corporal, but you can now call them by their last name because you are equals, even though they were training you and you reached the same rank. It's just weird, like, I can call you
Dave.
I can usually go by their last names, like Mork or Dor, just something like that. It's just... It's you're so used to it. It's so hard and so
to break that.
And I think Obi-Wan was a father figure though to Anakin.
Well, yeah, because he didn't really have one.
Right.
But I think their relationship was more on the lines of brothers than it was.
I see that as like with Peter, where Qui-Gon was dad. Qui-Gon leaves, and it's kind of like Lilo and Stitch.
Yes.
That aspect.
Like Nani and Lilo.
Very much so. And that's where they got the story. That's where George Lucas was like, oh, watch Lilo and Stitch. That's the relationship.
Makes sense.
After he watched that Goosebump episode, and he was all like, oh man, that's my Anakin right there.
That's
Hayden Christensen's right there.
That's it.
It's like, this guy's amazing.
Goosebumps.
There was an episode of like, why did George Lucas select this guy? And they show like George Lucas watching a Goosebumps episode and go, that's amazing. He's great. He's my Anakin.
Yeah, I guess he'll do. I guess.
He'll be Anakin. He's got the right stuff.
I guess he'll
I
do
killed
okay.
him.
But yeah, and so then we get into where we're at in the Clone Wars, where we see the thing that I find interesting. So like, you know, Attack of the Clones happens. I don't know. I have too much commentary in terms of like character development for Obi-Wan at this point. But when we get into the series, that's when like I noticed something. I watched a few episodes, and it was the thing that struck me, that interested me, was there was an episode where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Count Dooku get captured by the pirates.
A fun one.
It's a fun one. And you see the relationship between how Anakin treats Dooku and how Obi-Wan treats Dooku. And like Anakin has this like, I hate you, I want to kill you sort of vibe towards Dooku, and like Obi-Wan's all like, has more respect for Dooku, and I think that goes back to Qui-Gon. I think because obviously, you know, they do draw a little bit on that relationship. There's like a one-liner in Attack of the Clones where he's all like, "Oh, I miss Qui-Gon too," like, and that's about it. Like that. Yeah. That's all you get for character development there for their relationship. But like, you do sense that like there is a level of respect that they have for one another throughout the series. That like Dooku recognizes that Obi-Wan is an incredible threat, incredibly talented.
Yeah.
I think I read a thing about like Obi-Wan was like in charge of like pretty much the fleet, the main fleet for the Republic during the Clone Wars. Like he was like the Jedi in charge of almost everything, which was, when I saw it, I was like, wow, like the council really, when they put him on the council, like they really respected him.
I think
he earned his spot.
I think with Anakin and getting things done, you know, it really helped. Because as we'll know, like, watching the Clone Wars, as Father Yoda pointed out when I was watching with them, all Obi-Wan does is he gets caught, gets electrocuted, and like he escapes.
He knows how to escape. He knows how to get out of sticky situations.
And it was funny, like one of the little stories about him before, you know, Anakin is like he gets caught.
Yep.
You know, he gets caught.
He gets caught.
And it's just like
that's his MO. He gets caught. That's the, like, he's very skilled with a lightsaber, but you take that lightsaber away, he gets caught real quick.
And it's part of his like, I know how to get out of my trap, you know. That's
just spring the trap.
Well, when the Clone Wars hit in the comics, Obi-Wan was very committed to helping out in the Clone Wars, to where there was a series where they're like, Obi-Wan, take a break, like, you're non-stop, and he's like, no, and like his robe is all like torn up and like hair's grown out, and he's just like beast mode at this point. And they're like, where's Anakin? He's like, he's off on vacation, and he's with, you know, on Naboo.
And so as
he's got sand in all his places everywhere. Just can't get it out.
I hate sand. I'm sure you do. So
gets in my robotic arm, and it's cool, like my joints don't work so well.
Yeah. But basically, like, Obi-Wan was very like for the cause, and like he did not.
Oh, he believed in the Republic more than anyone.
Yeah, he drank the Kool-Aid.
Oh, he totally did. He was full on Republic, like you could tell, like you saw that, you know, with his shouting at Anakin in Episode 3, you know, it's like, you were the chosen, we're supposed to destroy the Sith, not join them, like, I fight for democracy, you know, like, you totally tell, like, he believed in the Republic, and, like, you know, and, you know, yeah, so, like, you saw that character development there, and then we go back to that storyline with Mandalore, where he reunites with his formal crush, Duchess Satine, which they have a few episodes together, but eventually Darth Maul comes back, spoilers, He comes back.
He adds so much to that storyline.
Oh, he did. Wars. Oh, he totally did. Like, Darth Maul added so much to that.
That's
whole
when
series.
it really got interesting.
It got
when
cool
they added him.
when he came back. It was like, oh man, yeah.
I love the lightsaber fight with Darth Plagueis. Not Darth Plagueis. Darth Sidious. Darth Sidious.
And Maul, yeah.
That's when you feel like, oh, Darth Sidious ain't joking around.
No, he's talented. But then Darth Maul comes in and kills Duchess Satine in front of Obi-Wan to eat at him, to get to him, to try to destroy him, just like how Obi-Wan destroyed his life. With one little flick of his lightsaber.
Yeah, that was I remember that moment going, whoa, this is a critical moment for Obi-Wan to, like, does he rage?
Right.
But he doesn't. And you see his, like, resolve in that moment.
So, like, that shows you, like, how much he had grown as a person at that point. And that kind of, like, solidified, like, nothing's going to shake this guy.
No.
Like, even losing loved ones, he will stay resolved in what was right. Even if the ones he loves get caught in the crossfire. Which then we get into what happens in Revenge of the Sith. You know? He basically ends the war. I mean, technically Anakin does, but I would say with the death of Grievous, that kind of ended the Clone Wars.
It was like a video game, like Anakin got all the glory and all the, like, gold tokens and all the stuff and weapons, and, like, Anakin knocks him out and he's like, these are mine. I got these.
Right. Totally. And it's just like, so, like, yeah, so Obi-Wan came in, he finished off the final general for the Separatist, and then gets caught in the whole Order 66 situation. And then you see his dark, like, his worst nightmare happen. And, like, even Yoda, I feel, questioned whether or not Obi-Wan could handle seeing him kill younglings.
Oh, yeah.
He says, you don't want to see it. I have to know. You don't want... It goes to, was it in that one movie? It's like, what's in the box? What's in the box?
Gotta know.
What's in the box? Not a children's movie. And then he learns the truth about Anakin. But instead of going into rage, he has a sense of responsibility. He has a sense of, like, ownership on why Anakin has turned to the dark side. I think
he does take that upon himself. Like, he failed.
Yes, he feels that, like, he's the reason why everything fell apart. So, and then obviously, you know, you see that and the only time you see that frustration is at that fight scene with Anakin, that final duel when he is arguing.
It's such an epic lightsaber duel.
Oh, it's so good. It's awesome. And so that kind of ends things off right before he takes Luke to his uncle and aunt to Tatooine to watch over them. And that kind of leads us right into where the Kenobi series will pick up, so to speak.
I'm kind of curious how his personality may change because he was so committed to the Republic and whatnot and the cause, and now that's gone. And so, like, how does he adapt and grow from it?
What do you do? Like, you can't go waving your lightsaber around. Because we learned there's Inquisitors. And
they're going to play a part in the Kenobi series.
We see them in Rebels first, but we've seen them in the preview.
Right.
And what we know takes place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So you got Luke, who's only like 10 years old.
Right.
So we're not going to see anything
like,
there.
You'll see him as a little boy in the distance, but we'll see Obi-Wan. What do you guys hope to see?
I want to just see Obi-Wan as Obi-Wan. We talked about, like
old Obi-Wan?
No, just, like, Obi-Wan as his only character, not worrying about, like, you know, Qui-Gon or
you actually want to see Obi-Wan have his own story.
His own story.
I agree. Like,
because I think he needs it, because he doesn't really have one.
Agreed. Like, all his story is, I was trained by this guy who believed in the Chosen One, who I trained, and then failed, and then I trained his son.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay. Like, that's kind of Obi-Wan's storyline. So it will be great to see his own story take place. See that transformation from, Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan, to A New Hope, Obi-Wan. To see that change of mentality. Hopefully maybe we might get a little cameo from Qui-Gon. That's what I'm hoping to see.
I heard that Liam Neeson goes, I don't do TV, I do movies.
Right.
And so he laid it out like, if you do a movie, I'll be interested, but I don't do TV.
But he did do TV.
What did he do?
He did Clone Wars.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he voiced Qui-Gon.
That's easy work.
He voiced Qui-Gon in the at the Chosen One.
Oh yeah,
part.
I remember that. He does appear.
That was probably easy.
That was like, I heard it was like,
it was
Liam
Tom
Neeson.
Hanks' brother. He does
Tom Hanks' brother. He's like, I can do a Scottish accent. Is he Scottish or Irish? Irish. He's Irish.
Think so.
He's Irish.
So yeah, I see that. We're gonna get Darth Vader.
Yeah,
that's been revealed.
I'm excited to see Darth Vader's like beginning.
Is it? Well, the question is it going to be flashbacks with Anakin? Are we going to get flashbacks with Anakin and Vader, or are we just getting Vader?
I think we're getting Vader.
I think we're getting flashbacks. I think we're going to get flashbacks.
They're going to make him younger again?
I think we're going to get Vader because people want Vader.
Well, we're going to get Vader. I think we're going to get Vader no matter
I want
what.
Vader! Here and now! Right now, I'm ready for you! I'm in the desert. Oh, I'm on your mom's grave. What do you know about that? I ain't no sand people. Oh, look, I'm on the hill. Who's on top? No.
Where's the high ground now?
Who's doing the robot? Oh, you are Darth Vader. Oh, snap!
Burn!
Put some Bacta on that. Oh, that one's gonna sting. You know. Oh gosh, that was good. Jackie, what were some of the things that you saw that came out? Like maybe what they could pull from during some of the comics that you saw, like some cool stories. Did you see anything?
I touched base off of it, but just like his like independence and his drive to like make things right and in order. And I feel like in the movies, for sure, they kind of downplay like how skilled he is.
I think so.
As a Jedi, because like in the comics, like he's
awesome.
He's pretty awesome.
And they do that in books and comics.
Yeah.
They really Bruce like I read the Phasma book and I'm like, she is totally awesome.
Oh,
and then she gets knocked out and put in a trash compactor. You're like, what the heck? You nerfed her.
Like, even if you look at the movies and what Obi-Wan's like credentials are, killed Darth Maul, killed Grievous, defeated Anakin. Like, that's a pretty impressive resume in terms of opponents you've eaten in just the movies alone. So,
it's all about the basics.
Yep.
So like, I just want to see like his coolness come out.
Hello there.
That's all everybody wants to hear. It's like, if you say that within the first 5 minutes, everyone's sold. They're like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Everyone was disappointed when he announced the day the trailer, the day the show was going to come out, that he didn't start by saying, hello there.
Yeah, I heard
Everyone was all bummed about that.
Yeah.
That would have been perfect. It just, hello there.
Yeah, you can't do that. It's just like, I'm tired of saying that, you know?
Right. So what are you looking to hope in that?
Yeah.
Well, I really enjoyed this period between the end of Revenge of the Sith and the Empire.
So you're probably really enjoying the Bad Batch series.
I love the Bad Batch series. I love what is going on behind the scenes. I wasn't a huge fan of Rebels at first, but then they introduced like Thrawn, and
you get into it. It's like, oh my gosh,
this was cool.
Yeah,
it's
towards
really
the
good.
end is good.
But I really want to see what's going on more with like the Inquisitors, maybe some Jedis that are holding out. What kind of resistance was going on with the Jedis? Is Darth Vader's hiding them? And they've added like video game characters.
Right.
There's talk like, do they meet up with Obi Wan?
Cal Kestis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big demand to see if he'll make his cameo. Probably. I'm not holding my breath.
You think Ahsoka's gonna be in there?
I think they did mention Ahsoka.
She might make an appearance, but I think we're gonna see what's his name, the Wookiee from Boba Fett.
Yeah,
I think
Chrysanthemum.
Yeah, Chrysanthemum, the Wookiee. I think he's gonna make an appearance
because there's a story where he gets his scar on his face from
Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to get something with that.
And they like to bring in cross-movie characters.
Right. Synergy.
Yes.
Synergy.
Because it makes you like, I know that person.
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
this is exciting.
That's something
another
I noticed,
character.
Well, that's something I noticed with the Disney era of Star Wars. Is it's like, okay, we got Force Awakens, and then what was the next movie? It was Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
And what did they talk about? They lightly talk about in Rogue One. They talked about tracking. Hyperspace tracking, which that became a plot point in The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, they had the dice, which nobody knew about really, except for the
Solo.
uber nerds, and that brought into Solo. And the Solo talked about the fuel as well,
the from the spice.
coaxium.
Yeah.
Coaxium. And so, like, it's all... They like to, like, leave subtle hints throughout the whole thing about all of those things. So it would not surprise me if we get an Ahsoka appearance.
Because she's got a big show that's coming out in the next year or two.
Right. And we'll see Chrysanthemum probably, because there's a connection there with Obi-Wan. So, yeah. Maybe we'll see an Andor connection, because Andor has a TV show coming out.
That's right.
Because that's the next Star Wars one, is the Andor series.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
They keep like, we're going to do this one. We're not going to do this one.
Was it Rogue Squadron?
The Rangers.
Rogue Squadron's the one that's like, nobody knows what's going on with that one.
That one seems like it'd be intensive with like CGI.
A lot of special effects on that one.
Yeah. We'll see.
Because there was a big book series in the Legends series where it was like 9 books.
Oh, I love that. I've read many of those. That was a good one. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap things up. I know, like you guys are, I'm so excited for this Obi-Wan, this Kenobi series, and
I'm curious about it. Where is it going?
What are we going to take from this? Is this just going to be this depressing story and it's be like, yeah, and now he's stuck in the desert being the lonely
There's
old man.
There's got to be hope at the end.
Right.
That's the biggest message with
for Star
Wars.
It's about hope.
It's all about having it's like, yeah, your chips are, gone, and you're just like, but you have one more left. You're like, this is it. This is what's going to save us. And I think that's where you're at the end. You're going to get, like, it's going to be all this darkness, and like Obi-Wan will probably beat one of the Inquisitors of some sort, or face Darth Vader and like barely get out, but he'll just watch. Like, I think he'll end with Luke Skywalker and going like, watching a little boy.
Him. He says, "I've got to stay here."
I think so. I think this is like
that's how it's gonna. That's how it'll end, with him being like, I need to protect this boy because he is our hope.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna get to the point where I think somebody starts sniffing too close, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us this week. You can follow us on all our social medias: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can message us on any of those platforms, as well as our email at matterhornyodelers@gmail.com. Let us know what you're excited about for the Kenobi series, or by the time this come out, it'll probably just be starting here. So let us know your thoughts, and we might be able to share those when we do our review on the series, once that series wraps up. So, yeah. Until next time, Auf Wiedersehen. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Matterhorn Yodelers. Please remember, before your bobsled comes to a complete stop, to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And remember...
Hello there.
No, they didn't see me.
Hello there. Hello there. Hello there. Hello there.